Hey guys, Kevin is for Arrow, Season 4, Episode 3, Restoration. I know it has taken me so long to finally review this episode. I've had a lot to do today, okay? Please bear with me, guys. I'll probably get my Empire Up review. Also, I haven't watched it yet, so hopefully I can get that up, which will happen today. But, I've been very busy lately, so sorry if I'm a little slacking on that kind of stuff. But, this episode is definitely looking forward to. It's been a really strong season so far, and like The Flash, this was the weakest episode of the season, I personally think. I still thought this was a great episode. It was the weakest one, but there were some really great things in this episode, and then there were some things that kind of pissed me off, honestly. There were some things in this episode that I thought were a bit annoying and a bit disappointing, but overall, I thought this was a really great episode. I really did enjoy it, and it continues its great episode, so let's just get into it. So, once again, we start in the middle of a fight scene, in the middle of an action scene. I don't know if this is going to be something that's normal for Arrow, but I think it's kind of cool the way they're doing that, so we get right into it. The episode starts on the docks, and Diggle is in his costume. He's chasing after a couple of armed thugs. One of them gets the drop on him, stares him and doesn't shoot, and they don't shoot. Green Arrow then comes riding in on his motorcycle, but they both seem to lose their targets, and I thought that was interesting that they actually lost their targets. I don't think we've actually seen that happen before, and you can see how hard this is for them. Felicity remotes hacks a piece of construction equipment, drops some large number on him. He tries to kill himself with a cyanide capsule. Diggle stops him. He shots Diggle and escapes, and basically, not only did they lose their targets, they also got away. So, obviously, their mission completely failed. So then we meet Merlin Roz, which is what we're gonna call him now, Malcolm. Basically, we meet Malcolm, who is now, the new Razo Ghoul, and basically Nyssa and him are sparring, and I love the scene where she's just like, "I'm not sparring." I thought that was really funny, and because she's used to fighting. That's not something that she's used to fighting. She's used to kicking people's asses. This is not fighting for her. This is simply just a way of life, and I think it was definitely very funny. And he says that's what makes it so fun, and she says how if she were to continue, she beat him, but they stopped because obviously I think he didn't want her to beat him anyway, which I thought was kind of funny. So he just calls it a draw, and Thea and Laurel then come in. This was the part of the episode that I thought was really good, but it didn't have the best outcome, and I'll get into that. Laura tells Malcolm that she wants him to bring her sister back to life, and it was cool to see Malcolm again. I did like seeing him. We haven't seen Malcolm all season, so it was nice to see him in this episode. And basically she talks about how Thea wasn't dead. He says how this is not really going to work because Thea wasn't dead. Sara is. So it's not going to be as easy to do that. I mean, Sara is decrepit. Her body is decaying. It's not like Thea's, who was just recently murdered. Sarah's been murdered for a very long time, and this has kind of come out of nowhere, and this is obviously something that Malcolm is not used to doing. And what you're basically I thought that was definitely very interesting. And he talks about how what they're asking hasn't been done since ages past, and even then only in legend. Even if it worked, who came out of the pit would not be Sara, and Laurel looks really pissed. We know, of course, that she's going to be White Canary, and you can see the look on Laurel's face. She does not want to take no for an answer, which is understandable. I mean, we saw how much this affected her last year, and I know people are like, oh, this is annoying what Laurel's doing, but again, think of how much this affected Laurel. I mean, she would not be the Black Canary now if her sister had not died. She would not have gone through this whole conflict with Lance if her sister had not died. None of this would have happened if Sara had not died, and obviously she wants to fix all that so maybe things can get better again because things are not the best for her right now. Flashbacks in this episode I found kind of unnecessary. Really wasn't that into them at all, I have to say. I honestly, I might not even talk about them because I didn't really find them that necessary, but basically, Oliver and one of the field hands have an unhappy conversation. A runner goes and Oliver runs after him, tackles him, trying to prevent him from being killed, and another guard knocks him out anyway, and I really didn't care about the flashback series, you can tell. But Diggle then gets home, and his door is open, and a man is standing in there, and obviously Diggle is worried, because he knows that their H.I.V.E. is, he knows that, Darhk has a connection with Hyde, and obviously he's thinking that H.I.V.E. might be the same organization that, of course, was after his mom and killed her, as we know. H.I.V.E. killed, I believe it was his mom that they killed, and, a man is standing there, and he's actually an Argus agent, and he says that Lila sent him, and Diggle's saying that, Lila left Argus a while ago, and he gives Diggle a packet with the ID on the woman who hired Floyd Lawton to kill his brother, Mina Fayed, and she's just flown in from Markovia. So, we cut to her talking to Darhk about taking steps to take out all the vigilantes in Star City, And basically, Fayed has an associate with tattoos of cards all over his arms, and this guy was pretty badass, I have to say. I mean, he is just looking at him, he looked very intense, and that's something I want in Arrow villain. I mean, maybe he was a little cheesy, but I think it worked for this show. He flings three of them at the ghost that got away earlier, and at Darhk's orders, they're razor sharp, a metahuman. So not only is Darhk challenging Oliver using all these different people, now he's using a metahuman, and this is when things are getting crazy. Now, connecting to the Flash, we know that we're supposed to see Darhk on the Flash. I've heard that he's going to make an appearance on that. Um, so what I'm kind of thinking is going to happen with Darhk is that he's going to ally with Wells. As we know, Zoom sent out Wells to obviously, you know, make Barry, to distract Barry and get Barry very worried and things like that. That obviously is what Zoom did. Well, Darhk seems to have a lot of the same motivations for Oliver, even though his intentions aren't as dark. We know he, of course, just wants to take over Star City. I still feel that him and Zoom could end up teaming up, and this could be very interesting if that does happen. We know, of course, that whatever happens, whoever dies, that's connected to what's going on with, with Oliver, and I think it definitely is going to be very interesting to see what happens there. And I think Barry is definitely is going to get involved in this somehow. I mean, he just has to. One, the crossover. Two, they mention each other so much that I feel like Barry just has to get involved. So, Lyssa, this is not awkward. Oh my god, Lyssa. If you guys haven't seen it, check out my awkward review. If you guys care about people named Lyssa, I don't know why I said that. Laurel and Nyssa are talking over the coffin of Sara. Oh my god, guys, I'm sorry. Laurel and Nyssa are talking over the coffin of Sara, and Nyssa tells Laurel basically that it's not worth to bring her back. She doesn't want Sara to come back. Which I do see Nyssa's point. This is not safe for her. She's going to be crazy. It's probably worse than her just letting Laurel die. I mean, if she does this, she's going to feel like shit about it, and it's going to really ruin things. And I like the warnings that she's giving her. I thought that was definitely very well done. And, basically, Laurel is fine with the possibility if it brings her back at all. And Laurel just wants to get her sister back, obviously. That's all she's concerned about. I don't really think Laurel is thinking about, the true problems this could have, which I think is definitely very interesting, and we'll have to see what happens. I thought that was definitely very interesting. So Felicity and Oliver are talking about a bit about the metahuman, and the DNA on the tooth has half the genetic markers that it should, and he should, basically she talks about how he should be a pile of goo, and an alert sends him out into the field, and basically Diggle, meanwhile, is tracking / stalking Fayed, and I was thinking that Fayed is connected to H.I.V.E. She's connected to that organization. Obviously, he wants to know where she is. Felicity calls him, and he's not answering. He's not concerned about Oliver and Felicity right now. I don't even think he's concerned about the mission right now. He's clearly just concerned about finding this girl. And something I like about Diggle is that he's much more focused on his own personal agenda. By giving Diggle his own storyline has made his character, I think, even more interesting, because now he has a lot of different things to deal with rather than just find this metahuman. It's much more than that, and I like that. So the other guard tells Oliver that he needs to show the restraint he's been showing. Violence is only the thing that they respond to. They're making a cocoon poppy hybrid drug called Slam. Again, I just didn't really care about the flashbacks in this episode. I mean, they have to make them more interesting, but so far, not really digging them, honestly. I thought they would go in a much different direction than they would, and having Oliver now at this military basis with a drug dealer, it's just not as interesting as it could have been. I mean, the flashback is supposed to show Oliver becoming the Arrow, and we're really not seeing that here at all. I mean, I really don't see that, and I really was not into this at all. That's definitely something that's going to be a problem for me, because the flashbacks I always find very slow and very just like, okay, whatever, very formulaic. Like, there's going to be flashbacks. It kind of seems pointless. And this is one of the episodes where I didn't even feel I really need them. So they need to figure out what to do with these, because they can make it a lot more interesting. They just need to figure out how. So, in the present, Green Arrow then finds two dead bodies, and the tattoo card man is there, and he says he's there from Fayed. He peels off a car and throws it, and Oliver deflects it with an arrow. It regrows in his arm the second he pulled it off, and this man is clearly very powerful. And basically, outside, Diggle gets assaulted by a guard. He takes him out, but they have the upper hand, and Oliver and this metahuman keep fighting. We don't know his name yet. Oliver closes the distance and goes hand-to-hand. He starts winning, but the cards start flying again. It's pretty insane, just the way that these metahumans are there. And Diggle's firefight ends with Fayed and her guards driving away, and obviously he didn't, again, Diggle's not having a good, Diggle is not doing very good in terms of fighting lately. He keeps getting people to go away, and that's not good. So Oliver busts out of the warehouse with one of the cards jammed in his arm, and that's obviously pretty insane that happened. So he has a card jammed in his arm, and Merlin and Thea then have this heart-to-heart, and he's trying to convince her that Sara wouldn't be helped by the pit. Not really at all. And I like this scene between Malcolm and Thea, is telling you that the pit continues traces of souls of all the men and women that have bathed in it. And that really is true. I mean, think of all the people that have been in the Lazarus pit. Sara's only one of the few. And he says if you give in to the impulse, it subsides for a time. And he talks about how she's not going to she's not all about going on a killing spree to feed the pit though. And a sage in the mountains may be able to help her. So the question is, who is this Sage? Maybe it's Vic Sage. I mean, that was definitely very interesting. Now I don't know who Vic Sage is, but everyone was freaking out about. I'm assuming he's associated with, Lazarus. Again, guys, I don't read the comics, so I don't know. And then we meet the metahuman Double Down. That's his name, and he was getting a tattoo in when the dark matter wave hits. And Felicity gives Oliver and Diggle a big time dressing down, saying that they need to sit there until they resolve their issues. And I really love this scene. Honestly, probably my favorite scene in the episode was this scene between Diggle and Oliver. Because Diggle basically says that he's not only not trust Oliver anymore, he doesn't think he could take a bullet for him anymore, meaning that when they are together, they're not really together. And I see Diggle's point, I really do. I mean, Diggle and Oliver are going in such different directions. Oliver's trying to turn himself around, while Diggle is now being targeted by this assassin, and he has no idea who she is and why she's after him. And they're just going in very different directions, and it doesn't seem like Oliver cares very much. And Oliver basically tells Diggle that Fi had hired Double Down, and they leave together, and basically he knows what's going on here. That Fiat is the one that hired him, and basically Fiat and Darhk are definitely working together. And Hickguard then starts shooting people to find out who stole the slam, and Oliver says he'll torture them instead, and there we go. That's what I want. I want something like that, where we see Oliver saying, that's something that the Green Arrow would say. That's not something that Oliver now would say. That's really a big contrast there. I want contrast in these flashbacks, and that's a great example of what that could be. So back at Palmer Tech, we see the first shot of the T-Spear. If you guys remember, Curtis was basically told that he has to now make it seem like he has made something, because obviously he hasn't. Felicity, the only reason he got him to stay there was saying that he could make them something, and now he's to figure out what it is. And basically the T-Spear is this autonomous communications device, which is great, except that it spontaneously explodes. And she gives him the Double Down card to see if it's been made by some kind of bioorganic material. He's suspicious, but doing it anyway. I really love these two, I have to say. Curtis is a great character. I'm really loving him on the show. Him and Felicity's interaction, I love it. I really do. They're great together. So at Diggle's apartment, Diggle and Oliver are talking, and Diggle finally fills him in on H.I.V.E. and his brother's death. And I wasn't sure if Diggle was going to tell him because, he doesn't really trust Oliver right now, and I like that he told him that. I think that's like their first step in resolving their issues. And he shows him the evidence he's collected since then, and Fayed's picture, and he tells her how her name is Mina Fayed, and basically Darhk is not happy with Double Down. H.I.V.E. is anxious to go to Phase 3 of Genesis. My biggest thing with this, that this was very much like last week with, what was his name? The villain from last week. Darhk was not happy with him, because he has his own personal agenda, and it's very different from what we had. It's not that different from what happened last week, so I was a bit upset with that. But H.I.V.E. is anxious to go to Phase 3 of Genesis, whatever that is. We don't know what Genesis means. He tells Double Down to try to kill him. He stops the card telekinetically. He used the card then to kill Fayed, and he then pulls it back with TK and throws it at Double Down, cutting his cheek. And he says, just in case you had any doubt how I processed his appointment. And I was surprised that they killed Fayed, but obviously Fayed was not doing what, Fayed was the one that hired Double Down, and Darhk was pretty pissed at her, so that's why he killed her. My only thing with that is that kind of gives us, that kind of slows down Diggle's storyline, which I like, because I like the storyline that he's involved in, but I was hoping they would see more of Fayed, and now we can't because she's dead, so, whatever. Two League of Assassin members then attack Thea in her sleep, and she easily defeats and kills both of them, and Malcolm tells her that there is no sage, no cure, but now she won't feel the hunger to kill again for weeks. So, she keeps getting that rage to just kill, and that's because of Nanda Parbat. And I thought it was really smart what Malcolm was doing, showing her, look, this is your side of it from Nanda Parbat, and you want the same thing to happen to Sara. That's basically what he's trying to do here. He's trying to tell her what she has to do, and I thought that was definitely very interesting. And Felicity's trying to find Fayed and can't on any cameras, but finds her cell phone at Redmond and 8th. So, and in the flashbacks, Oliver's torturing one of the farmers. The woman he talked to earlier said she took the drugs that they've been working too hard, and some of them are hurt and they need the painkiller. And Oliver offers to take her elsewhere and kill her where no one will ever find the body, but gets sent with another guard, and basically that's what happens there. Few of them wants to get out and go home at all costs. Malcolm stays calm, trying to tell her everything he does is for her, and he basically decides that he'll restore Sarah's life so that Thea's conscience and bloodlust is cleared. Because obviously Thea was very much affected by the Lazarus Pit, and Sarah's gonna be just affected, and obviously get rid of Thea's thing, and you gotta put Sarah in the Lazarus Pit, which I thought was interesting. So basically, Team Arrow then goes to a warehouse, sees Faya tied to a chair, and of course she's dead. And basically, Diggle says that his first chance for answers, and that was his last chance. And I felt really bad for Diggle. Obviously, he wants these answers. He wants to know what's going on, and he just lost all sign of possibly getting those answers. And Oliver tells him that they'll get answers together, and it really seems like Oliver and Diggle are starting to get back to that place, which I like seeing, and I think they're handling that very well. Curtis and Felicity have a chat about the playing card, and Curtis is trying to find a way to beat down the owner of the card, and Double Down shows up and starts throwing cards, asking for the Green Arrow, and she tells Curtis that she works for the Green Arrow, and this guy is trying to kill them, and this was just awesome. She takes him down to the Arrow Cave, and Felicity blindly fires at Double Down. That was so awesome when she did that. She has a fully automatic weapon. I mean, Felicity, badass. We never see this side of Felicity, but Felicity is a badass in this scene, and Curtis gets hit with a falling light from the ceiling somehow. Felicity eventually hits Double Down, and that was insane. The fact Felicity was able to do this on her own, that's the Felicity I want to see. I don't want the crying, whining Felicity. No, this Felicity is awesome, and that's why I really do love Felicity as a character, is because of moments like this. Like I told you guys, when Felicity is great, she is great, and this is a great example of how they can utilize her character, and I definitely really loved her character in this episode, I have to say. I thought she was fantastic in that scene, and by far, probably my favorite scene we've had of Felicity in a while. She was awesome there. And just something different, which I love. So Oliver and Diggle get back. Double Down is gone. Curtis is at the hospital. She's able to use his tracing program to find Double Down. And at Anna Parbat, Sarah's being lowered into the Lazarus Pit. Nyssa isn't happy, but is held back. The pit starts to bubble, and I wasn't thinking this was going to work. I really didn't. And as we've seen for the teasers, Sara emerges, and it's not a violent burst out, though. It's a slow rise. And I was a bit upset that she actually was resurrected in this episode. I was thinking that they'd have to hire John Constantine to be able to bring her back because she was dead. And I thought this would be harder to do, but no, it happened like that. And I thought this was kind of underwhelming. I really felt this very underwhelming, and she does look like she's going to attack anyone and anything, which I thought was very well done. You could definitely tell that Katie Lutz got right back into that role, and basically Malcolm doses her to sedate her. Everyone's freaking out, and I really like that scene, I have to say. Just seeing her on the verge of killing people was very well done. It just felt underwhelming, and I felt they should have dragged this out for a few more episodes just because we need to get John Constantine there, and now it feels like it's going to be forced to get him in there. It would have made more sense if, Sara would not have come back and they needed John to resurrect her. That would have made more sense, but that's not what's going on. It's more of they need Constantine's going to be on the show, but in what capacity, I don't know. I just find that very strange that they did it this way. I don't know. So back at Star City, Green Arrow and Dig cut off Double Down's escape route. He gets out of the car. Fight begins. Diggle fires a special rope bullet out of his fancy gun. Double Down manages to throw 3 cards at him. Oliver dives in front of him and take him. He's not really hurt because Kevlar, and it goes a long way to earning Diggle's trust back. And you could see that he does want to take a bullet for Diggle. He does want to help out Diggle, and I really like seeing that. I thought it was definitely really great that we saw that. I definitely really love that. So at a restaurant, OTA, original Team Arrow is sitting having a drink, and they need to think about Lair 3.0 since Darhk might know about 2.0 now. And Oliver says he's been working on something, a surprise, and what that surprise is, we don't know. I did notice something, though. There's no mention of the campaign of Oliver running for mayor in this episode. Really? We spent, so much time, and it seemed like it was a huge thing, and then there's no mention of it whatsoever? That just felt very weird to me that we had no mention about it. No, oh, I started pitching something about my campaign. Just nothing about him running for mayor. Just felt very weird. Then in the flashback, Oliver and the girl are walking. The other guards chases after them, steps on a landmine and explodes. He tells her she needs to trust him for them to both stay alive. And it seems like him and this girl are going to bond. And this could make the flashbacks thing a bit more interesting. Seeing this girl and the connection he has with her could be very interesting, especially juxtaposition to Diggle and Oliver, which I like seeing. I like that's something right there that I always love comparing the flashbacks to what's going on in the present. That's a perfect example of how I can do that. So at Palmer Tech, Curtis is cleaning up his lab, and he tells her how she seems, Felicity says that he seems pretty calm for a guy who nearly got killed by a metahuman. He's excited that he's working with someone who's helping make the world a better place, and her phone was active every time she's been in Kurt's lab, acts up again, and then says her name, and, I'm pretty sure now that since we know that Ray Palmer is coming back, I think we can confirm that Ray Palmer is trying to communicate with her through her cell phone. How he's doing this, we don't know, but the T-Spear is definitely communicating with her, and I really feel it's Ray Palmer that is communicating with her, because we know he's coming back in Legend tomorrow, and we'll have to see what happens with that, but I definitely feel that's who's communicating there. We'll have to see. But the ending of this episode was really interesting. Sara's all chained up and not well, totally unresponsive to Laurel, and back in the Lazarus Pit, Nyssa's destroyed it using a method her father created. She has now destroyed this Lazarus Pit, and she says that one day I'll have my moment and I will kill you, and she also threatens Laurel, saying what's happened to Sara now is on her hands, and that's how the episode ends. So, obviously, Nyssa's really pissed at Laurel for what she did, obviously, because, Nyssa's in love with Laurel. That was her girlfriend, everything. She really did love her. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that. Overall, I thought this was a really solid episode, I have to say. It did have a lot of problems. I definitely will say that. I hope they do continue to keep this, the episodes interesting. I did feel this villain was really interesting. I really like the character of Double Down, but they need to be able to show Oliver's campaign in this season, because that could be something really interesting that they're not showing, and I hope they don't just forget about it, because it could be a very compelling storyline. I hope they do something with it rather than just drop it. I don't like it when shows drop storylines. I want them to keep a storyline and expand upon it, because that's what makes a good show. I don't want a show to just be like, oh yeah, we have this storyline. That storyline we were going to do, yeah, we're going to talk about that in another episode. That's not what it seems like they're doing here. It seems like they're just, they don't want to say anything with it. I don't know. It was just strange. I did like Oliver and Diggle, though, in this episode. Probably the strongest part of the episode for me was Oliver and Diggle. Just seeing their bonding in this episode is very interesting. They're in a very odd spot, and it's interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see if they can get back to where they were, if they can get back to the bond that they had. I mean, it seems at this point like it's not exactly going to work, but we'll have to see how that works out. I think Ray is definitely trying to communicate with Felicity through this machine, which I think is interesting. How he's doing this, I don't know. Obviously, there has to be a reason why, but clearly he is trying to communicate with her. We'll have to see what happens, and I thought that was definitely very interesting. My only complaint, like I said, is the whole thing with Sara. I just wish that they would have waited longer to resurrect her. It just felt completely rushed, and I'm not as big as a fan of it. But what is Nyssa going to do? Nyssa definitely is going to go after Laurel. There's going to be some tension there, which I like seeing. I want to see some tension there. We'll have to see what ends up happening with that, because that's going to be very interesting. What is Oliver's surprise? He says he has some sort of surprise. Does that regard his campaign? I'm not really sure, but I definitely feel like there's something going on there that's going to be very interesting. Diggle finding out more about H.I.V.E. Obviously, Darhk killed, Darhk killed the only person that could fight, the only person that could have actually given him information. So what he's going to do now, I have no idea what Diggle's going to do. We'll have to see what Diggle does, but I don't think this is going to work out as well as he thought it was going to, unfortunately. But yeah, it doesn't seem like it's going to come as easily to Diggle as he thinks, which kind of sucks, but I kind of like seeing as well, because Diggle is in a really bad position right now, and I think it's really interesting. So overall, guys, I thought this was a great episode. I definitely really enjoyed it. Definitely next week's looks even better. Basically, Lance is going to go to Darhk for help with Sara, and that's going to be very interesting to see what happens with that. But how much you guys saw this episode? I thought this was, like I said, the weakest episode of the season. A few problems with the episode. Hopefully, they can fix some things overall. But I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for tonight's episode of the Vampire Diaries, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.